views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, and welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program providing you the latest information, resources, services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx and virtually. I'm your host, Kibin, Alleyne, and today is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. Coming up, an exhibit exploring the Latin American experience with immigration opens at the MoMA PS1. Will members of this community finally feel represented? Then, researchers are looking into the first antiviral pill against COVID 19. Could it be more effective than the vaccine? After that, one activist calls for the protest towards the cancellation of student debt. What will this cancellation mean for struggling college students? And November marks Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We speak with a psychiatrist who focuses on the mental health of this vulnerable community. What are some of the mental health challenges people experience after getting an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis? So please stick around. Open BXRX Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne. I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. With a mission to highlight the Latin experience in New York City, second-generation Dominican American Djali Brown-Cepeda created Nuevayorkinos. Now the founder is here to discuss her latest project that explores the Latin American experience with immigration. Djali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been on the show before, but for those who don't know, can you tell us about Nuevayorkinos?
Yes, so Nuevayorkinos is a digital archival oral history project that is centering the New York City Latinx experience through collecting family photos and stories. And it's alive on social media. I have a website, and now it's in a museum again. So really cool.
And how did this actually begin for you?
So I was in Dominican Republic visiting the country for the second time in my life because I did not grow up going back and forth to the island like a lot of my other, friends. But I went with my family and I was watching a show on television that basically was supposed to be, transformative in its Afro Latinx representation, and it just wasn't that. So honestly, I was really annoyed, and to not go to bed annoyed, I went on my phone like we all do, and I'm scrolling and scrolling, and I don't know, it was one of those light bulb moments. I had been out of college already for like a year and a half, but I had taken archiving classes, art classes, photography classes, things like this, obviously film classes. I majored in film, so I was always, thinking about media representation, and I work in film. So I think it was just one of those like random, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. moments of like creativity where I just thought, oh my God, wait, where is like the Latinx New Yorker, like, representation online? And I found the West Coast, I don't want to say equivalent because she is the OG, but Guadalupe Rosales, she does Veteranas and Rucas, which is a homage to the women of South California, of LA. And I was very inspired by her project. And I thought, you know what? Where is this for, this side of the country? Where is this for, this city? Where is this for my neighborhoods? And I didn't see it. So I just thought I might as well do it. And here we are. It's going to be 3 years on February 14th. So my passion project was born in the wee hours of Valentine's Day.
So I love that you kind of emphasize New York City because I do feel like as New Yorkers, we do have like a unique experience, and I think
Yes.
you add in your background, it just makes it even more rich. Can you just explain like the relationship between New York City and the Latin community?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so extensive, New York City, similar to, I mean, New York City is such a microcosm, right, of the rest of the country, but we have existed here. We do exist here, and we will continue to exist here. Whether we're looking at Puerto Rican migration, at like the top of the turn of the century, or you're looking at Dominican migration, starting during the dictatorship, or you're looking at Colombian migration, or you're looking at Cuban migration. New York City is such a, it's a place where people come and people feel, or they find rather community. We have our enclaves. We have Low Washington, in Washington Heights, you have Quisqueya Heights, you have Low Dominican Republic, you have Loisaida in the Lower East Side. So it's a place where we're all able to come, hustle, get the money, make sure that our people, our networks are good here and back home. And it's a place where we foster community. I think that the Latinx experience in New York City, and I'm just speaking from experience, it's something that is so different. It is not the same Latinx experience as Chicago's, or as Miami's, or as LA's, or as, Houston's, right? Like, it is so different. And so I think that New York is a place where we all kind of coexist together in ways that are different than different cities and different than our respective countries. So the community here is just so extensive. We've contributed so much. We have contributed, we are contributing, we will continue to contribute. And we just exist on this sort of, continuum of immigrants, of the immigrant community here in New York City. And I think it's something that's very special.
I agree 1000% with like everything that you said. So, thank you so much for that. Now, your latest project is titled Nuevayorkinos, Essential and Excluded. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so Nuevayorkinos, as folks know who follow the project, is really kind of centered in the past, right? So my submissions cap at 2010, but I've become very interested in, also showing up for and amplifying and standing in solidarity with folks who are at the beginning or in different stages of their immigration sort of journey here to the city, and maybe people who I have who wouldn't necessarily feel or who I just haven't necessarily represented thus far. And so basically what this show is, I had the incredible opportunity to partner with MoMA PS1 and with other organizations, Make the Road New York Communities for Change, the Street Vendor Project, who all of them came together last year in 2020 to sort of mobilize and create the Fund Excluded Workers Coalition, the FEW Coalition. And they have been fighting for COVID relief, economic assistance for undocumented workers since last year, right? Since the pandemic happened, because unlike other folks who have citizen privilege, undocumented people, despite being the heart of this country, were not able to engage with or receive this aid from the government level. And so there was a hunger strike last year, but this year was a longer hunger strike, a 23-day hunger strike that happened in April, and basically incredibly resilient, joyous, dope, activists, organizers came together, intergenerational, multiracial, multi-ethnic, people coming from different countries, but they came together. Desi's Rising Up drum is their name of their organization. There were Chinese American organizations, but everyone came together to participate in this hunger strike, to push the government to pass a bill. And so initially, they fought for $3.5 billion, and this year rather, $2.1 billion was passed for an excluded workers fund. And in that fund, basically, I believe the majority of undocumented workers, excluded workers who applied for the fund received the fund, and they received $15,600. And so this aid was able to cover so much. It was able to cover their debts. It was able to cover school supplies for their children. And so I had the opportunity to memorialize this moment, and I wanted to do so, by taking up space in MoMA PS1 with this immigrant story that is so, it just speaks to the power of immigrants in this country, people who have fought and who've always fought, for what we deserve. But I mean, just these, strikers put their bodies on the line for 23 days and they didn't eat. Many were older. And so I wanted to, memorialize them and just basically pay homage to such an incredibly strong moment in history, important moment in history, New York City history, the country's history. So that's basically what's on display now.
And how does it feel to be a woman of color, to have this exhibition with this particular focus become part of the MoMA?
Oh, I mean, my whole thing, like if I had a motto or one of my many mottos is like take up space. And I just feel incredibly grateful and humbled that I was able to take up space in this institution, and it's multiple levels, right? Taking up space as a woman of color. And, my particular identifiers, I'm a Black woman, I'm a Dominican woman, I'm a woman from uptown, I'm a Dominican Yorker, I'm an Afro-Indigenous woman. So taking up space within my multiple identities as me, as the, curator of this particular project is, insert word. I don't really have the words yet to sort of work through that and process, but also having a community that has been incredibly marginalized and completely overlooked be the focus and be centered in this, predominantly white institution was something that I felt incredibly, again, just humbled and grateful to be the catalyst for, and to be taking up space in Long Island City, which is the most rapidly gentrifying neighborhood within the country, even though it's in a borough that is the most diverse because of its immigrant population and demographic, but one that is incredibly excluded, when you're looking at sort of the trends of gentrification and museums, what they're showing, what's on display, who's able to come into these museums. So I'm not sure, MoMA PS1 has ever had that many Latinx immigrants and immigrants from different countries, because we had Vietnamese immigrants, vending. There were African immigrants vending. There were Afro-Colombian, immigrants performing. It was just it was a lot. And I feel I'm still there, like mentally and emotionally. I'm still there. And I just feel very grateful. And it's, something that I, of course, did because of my work, but it's something that the ancestors and everybody who came before me, people who I am biologically related to, and folks that I am just, ancestrally related to, they were the guiding forces of this project. And I just hope that, wherever they are, they were smiling and dancing and celebrating with us. So I'm very grateful to have this opportunity.
Thank you so much for, that heartfelt, just response to everything. And we could definitely see how passionate you are about this. Can you just let everybody know where they can stay in touch with you, see the exhibit, and so much more?
Yes. So the exhibit is up until the first week of January. It's at MoMA PS1, which is in Long Island City, Queens. So you can go there. It's free for New Yorkers. So just say you're a New Yorker, show them your ID. You can get in for free. Many people do not know this about museums in New York. Many of them are free for New Yorkers. Despite them being very exclusive, they're free. So go and take up space. So the show is up until next year, top of the year. And to stay in touch, you can DM me at Nuevayorkinos. You could send me an email, which is on my website. And if you want to submit your photos and videos and stories, the guidelines are very simple. All you got to do, or you have to be Latinx from New York. The photos and videos have to have been shot within the 5 boroughs before 2010. And just send me, your country of origin and a story. So I hope that all of y'all, if you feel so inclined, I hope that y'all submit.
Djali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption
of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back. Researchers are looking into the possibility of the first antiviral pill against COVID-19. Becoming the first New York location to study the antiviral pill, molnupiravir, Montefiore and Einstein investigates the prevention of this virus. Joining us for discussion on this research is Dr. Barry Zingman, principal investigator for the study at Montefiore and Einstein. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So can we just first start off by talking about molnupiravir? Can you explain what that is?
Molnupiravir is a promising antiviral medicine that, if it works against COVID, helps to prevent the virus from growing, from replicating itself and infecting other cells in the body. And in a study that was actually announced about 3 weeks ago from Merck of the drug, the medicine given to people with early COVID did reduce their risk of hospitalization or death from COVID. So it produced the first really impressive results of an oral antiviral medicine for COVID that can be given by prescription potentially to outpatients with COVID. Now, this is a companion study with that, looking to see whether or not the same medicine in the same doses can help to prevent COVID in people who are very, very high risk of getting it. And so that is people who are living in the same household as somebody with COVID and are themselves unvaccinated. So if you're living with somebody with COVID and you're unvaccinated, that is a very high risk situation. And so we are studying this. It's actually an international study going on at places all around the world to see whether or not this new medicine can help prevent COVID and the complications of COVID.
Now, you just mentioned that it's a study all over the world. We know that this could have stemmed from Britain. What were some of the findings from the study that inspired research here in the Bronx in New York?
So the first study, which proved that the medicine actually works in people with COVID, showed that the rate of hospitalization or death, the worst outcomes that we see for people with COVID, was reduced by 50%. So there were half as many people who developed these severe complications if they got the molnupiravir early in their course of COVID. This is a critically important finding. And this approach is one that the whole world would like to embrace because the medication could be easily available. You potentially could get it at your local pharmacy. You don't have to go be scheduled for an intravenous infusion for treatment. It would be very accessible, and it would be really open to anyone. And so that's very, very attractive to us. People in the Bronx and surrounding areas need an accessible medication or accessible treatments for COVID-19. And we're not just looking at this now. Unfortunately, we are looking at the COVID pandemic going on potentially for years to come. and so having more treatment options for people with COVID is really essential.
So what will this research look like? And basically that just means who's involved, how long, and what are you hoping to find?
So about 1,000 people around the world are going to be in the study. Half of the people in the study get the molnupiravir. Half of people in the study get a similar looking placebo tablet, a sugar pill kind of tablet. And that's the best way to be able to prove whether or not the medicine actually works or doesn't work, and doesn't have side effects or not. And what we're going to be looking at is whether or not a person comes down with COVID at all, so by a positive test of their nose, whether or not they develop symptomatic COVID of any degree, fevers, chills, coughing, and very importantly, whether or not they have a need to go to an emergency room, be hospitalized, or die from COVID. In addition, another thing that's going to be looked at is whether or not it might have the potential to reduce transmission. So we're certainly hoping that if we can stop the cycle of one person giving it to the next by intervening with the medication, that would really help the overall pandemic, even in the community as well. So we're hoping that it can benefit the individual as well as the community.
Now, you've referenced the CDC saying that this treatment could possibly save lives. I think you touched on it a little bit, but can you just elaborate a little more on how, if this works out, this can save so many lives?
So the information we have right now so far is from the company that makes the medication, Merck. It has not been published in a journal yet. It hasn't been peer reviewed yet. But Merck has produced data in a press release that shows that there was, as I mentioned, a 50% decrease in hospitalization or death, and in fact, going to death, there was 0 deaths in the people who got the molnupiravir, whereas there were 8 deaths in the people who got the placebo tablet. So it was really very significant. But we do look forward to the formal publication of these results and us being able to look at the data further. Also, one very important thing is that they reported so far is that there were no significant side effects, and people may have heard that the U.S. government and certain other governments have actually already started to put in orders for the medicine so that they can have it in a stockpile in case there are new outbreaks, new strains. And that's one of the potential advantages of having a different way to treat this, is that future variants, future strains may still be susceptible to this, may still be treatable with this medicine, whereas maybe vaccines stop working if there's a brand new variant. That's a possibility. So we really want to be able to have options that help us in terms of access to treatment, as well as even to be able to address future changes in the pandemic that we can't even necessarily predict right now, but just to give us different treatment options in the future. And let me just mention also that this medicine isn't a new concept in COVID. We right now have a medicine that works in a similar way, but it's only given by intravenous. So we studied it here at Montefiore and Einstein, and we're one of the top sites in offering this to our patients. Remdesivir was a similar medicine. It was shown to reduce the risk of death and complications from COVID, but there's never been an oral version of it yet. And so now we have the first oral medication for COVID, which is a major, major advance.
Well, that's amazing. So I'm happy that you got to that. Do you think that the oral medication could potentially have a much larger impact?
Absolutely. We expect that a pill like this for COVID is going to be much better accepted around the world, much more available around the world, much more easy to manufacture, to distribute to local pharmacies, it should be less expensive. Merck has already announced that it's going to be significantly less expensive than certain other treatments, like people have heard about monoclonal antibodies that can be given to treat COVID early on or to prevent COVID. This should be less expensive, easier to get, better tolerated, and so we think that this will be a solution in certain situations. And let's just also remember that in much of the world, the only treatment that may be very accessible to people is pills. So the monoclonal antibody that is available is intravenous. It takes specialized care and monitoring. It's very expensive, and so it's not really available to a lot of people and in a lot of places around this whole world. And we've learned from early on with COVID that you do need to come up with solutions that will work for the whole world. You can't just have a solution that works for your community or your city or your country because it's a worldwide pandemic. So this helps us to extend that principle to treatment, being able to offer treatment now all around the world.
Now, if this were ready to give to people, do you think there would be difficulty getting those who refuse the vaccine to take this antiviral pill?
Well, that is a possibility, that if people are scared of certain things, they're going to be scared of other things too. But certainly from our experience is that many people are more comfortable taking a pill than injections or infusions of different things. They feel more comfortable with that kind of way of taking a treatment. So we certainly hope that if the medication is approved by the FDA and shown to work and be safe and effective, that people in need will take it. Let me also just mention another group of people, not just unvaccinated, who might benefit from this treatment in the future, and that's people who may not have responded to the vaccine. We have hundreds of thousands of people around the United States and millions around the world who are immune compromised, who have underlying conditions that make it harder for the vaccines to work. So this treatment, although we're not studying that population in this first study to tell whether or not the medicine works at all, that population would be a very important target of this medication if it is shown to work, because folks like that really need everything they can get to try to fight off the virus.
So, Doctor, thank you so much. Can you just let us know how can people stay updated with this study and Montefiore?
Sure. Thank you. So we are looking for unvaccinated people living in a household with somebody with COVID-19. You have to be enrolled in the study within 5 days of your household contact first getting diagnosed with COVID. So that basically means it's very quick. We have to learn about you 2 or 3 days or even sooner after somebody in your household has had COVID, so that we can start the process, talk to people about the study, do the testing that's required, enroll them in the study, and because you have to be enrolled in the study within 5 days to be able to truly get the medicine in early, to be able to test it. So people who may be interested are encouraged to email us at id_ctu@montefiore.org, or can call us at 718-920-5224, and as soon as possible if you're living with somebody with COVID and are unvaccinated. We hope you're not unvaccinated, but if you are, then give us a call.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday.
If you're struggling to afford your internet bills during the pandemic, there's a temporary government program that may be able to help. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, and it provides up to $50 monthly discount on your broadband bill to qualifying households. Find more information about the program, including if you qualify and how to enroll, at fcc.gov/broadbandbenefit, or call toll-free at 833-511-0311. That's 833-511-0311.
Welcome back. One man is using his platform to hold many of our elected leaders accountable. Joining us to discuss the work he's doing to address inequalities, injustice, and more is Stephon Baines. Stephon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you identify as a civil rights activist. When and how did this journey begin for you?
I think it started at a young age. When I was about 16 years old, I was adopted into foster care, and I kept in contact with many of the social workers, and one of the presidents of the agencies had sat down with me and became my mentor, involved me in community work because he thought I would be a good person to do that. And I've been interning at many different council members' offices and many different nonprofit agencies, and I've been doing that work since. I ended up doing foster care advocacy work, and then I transitioned to doing work for people who are minorities in Black and Brown communities who were killed by the police, and that's how I continue to fight for them.
So one of your, like you mentioned, you fight for so many things. One of the things you've been fighting for is the cancellation of student debt. This has been an ongoing fight for many. Can you just explain the importance of this issue?
Well, many people from our communities, they go to college as a dream. It's their dream come true to go to college, to go to school and graduate. However, there are so many different things that prevent people from graduating. And student debt is a crisis right now. We have trillions of dollars of college debt, and the people who came before us, they still think it's a working system, and it's not. The data shows that college has been putting us into debt, the government into debt, and there are so many things that stop people from graduating. Financial hardship. There are things like the graduation rates, the high school rates. Many people can't even afford to stay in school. There's a certain amount of credits that you can take and versus your attempted credits. And all these things are an issue when it comes to student debt, and it's something that has to be solved all over the board. It affects our communities, Black and Brown, our brothers and sisters. They're affected by it. And it's just a system that is not working right now, and we need urgent help. Joe Biden has known this for years. The government has known this for years. They've provided banks with financial relief. They've provided houses, the housing crisis for financial relief. They've provided many different immigrants and many different other agencies for financial relief. And they promised to do that for our people, but it has yet to be delivered upon our current administrations locally and nationally. And I think with the data, we can show that we can fight this thing. The reason why we can fight this thing is because we need to educate ourselves on the issue, and we need to educate ourselves on the issues in school as well. How do we get past this? It's going to take accountability for our elected members to stop allowing them to depriving us of our resources, including college education, because tuition is rising and the crisis is just getting worse.
Now, like I mentioned, this was kind of like an ongoing issue for many, but it kind of came up again after Biden's memo on student loans. In reference to one of your Instagram posts, you were not too happy when you heard Biden's current plan. Can you detail that for us a little bit more?
What a lot of people don't understand is that college debt has been going on for years and years and years. And because many of our grandparents and parents have benefited off of it, they think it isn't a problem. What's going on with this memo is that President Biden is gaslighting his voters. He's telling people that there is a new plan. He has only cut the loans and he has only cut debt for disabled people, and only for those people. There was already a program in place that was before Biden, that was even in place when Trump was there, which is the student loan forgiveness program. And this loan forgiveness program, you have to qualify for it, which eliminates a lot of people. Everyone doesn't qualify for the student loan forgiveness program. You have to be working for a nonprofit for maybe 10 years and even more than that. The requirements are outrageous. The time and amount it's going to take for somebody to forgive the loan to be consistently working is outrageous. And what I'm asking for is, let's get the details of this forgiveness loan as well. Is it consistent? Can somebody go from job and then go from a different job, and does it reset? There are so many discrepancies with the student loan forgiveness program that he had nothing to do with at all. And he's gaslighting the people. And he made a promise and he made a commitment that he would cancel $10,000 in student debt for every student. And I think we deserve that because of inflation, the tuition prices. And not only that, college is extremely expensive, and many of our youth and people who are graduating and going to school are not graduating, and those who do are even lucky to find a job that they can pay back their student debt.
So for those who may not understand, can you explain what student loan forgiveness or even cancellation will truly look like?
Student loan forgiveness versus student debt. Basically, student loan forgiveness is a financial plan that was, by the way, already in place, which says that if you continue making these payments and you work for a program under our circumstances based on our time, not the student's time, but the government and their program's time, which has not been adjusted, by the way. It's been the same for a very long time. That means that they will forgive some of the debt that you had. They have not gone into details and they have not changed this in a very long time. But we do know that's what student loan forgiveness look like. There are multiple student loan programs. Some of them, if you work for a nonprofit, army, many different requirements and many different ways and loopholes that maybe some of us can fall into it, but not all of us. Now, student cancellation debt, and what Joe Biden was saying is that he's going to take off everyone's student debt, $10,000 and even more. I actually think it should be even more than that. I'm fighting for the cancellation of debt and free to college tuition for all students from all backgrounds. And our older grandparents have a problem with that. They have a problem with that because they had to pay off their student debt in a failing system. That was their fault. I think it's time to make the generation prosper, increase the data and statistics. And also, as a parent, as someone who wants to do better for their sons and their children, it's very selfish to say just because you don't benefit from it, that other people can't. Your children can't benefit from it. I think it's very selfish. I think we should change that mindset. And there's also a lot of inconsistencies. Like I said, the mayor just canceled the debt of many different taxi driver medallion owners, $150,000. $115,000 up to $175,000 per medallion. I think there's some miscommunication going on, and that is a discrepancy.
Now, do you think there's any intersectionality between this fight for the cancellation of student debt and, criminal justice system or economic disparities, racial disparities, and so on?
Yes, I think there is a lack of proper representation. When we talk about financial wealth, financial history, we are enduring severe conditions. If you go outside and you look at the streets of the Bronx, there's trash everywhere. There's trash, there's rats, the sanitation department can't maintain, they can't keep things up to date, they lack renovation, they lack investing in small businesses. What is investing in small businesses? Not just maintaining, but upgrading, getting us up to speed, getting us solar panels, getting us electric energy, not letting the pollution, rodents, mice, violence just plague our communities and act like they're doing something when they just provide us their basic maintenance. If you go into other communities, even basic communities all over the country, they don't look anything like this. And these are communities that I would consider people who make low income money. This is not people who are making a whole lot of money. Even their communities do not look as deprived as our communities do. There's trash laying everywhere. There are mice and rats. It is a penal code law in the health section that you must maintain your property in the Bronx, New York, and you must prevent rodent and rat from spreading all throughout your stores and your restaurants. Why? That creates disease. That creates mold. It creates harsh conditions, and people have to eat that food at these stores. It's a part of law, and they know this, and they're letting us rot, and they're not caring about it. And I think even when it comes to the financial situation of us, we're lacking jobs from college, we're living in poorer conditions, and we need to fight for those things.
So I know you recently protested about this. Can you just quickly tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I sat down with a team and some really good, a few good friends of mine, and I sat down and I said, you know what? We have a new mayor-elect that's coming into office, so let's let our demands be known. Let's his demands, and let's see what we can come to a consensus on at the table. The meeting started going well. The mayor does understand our conditions as well as many of our other elected officials, but I think the problem is that he has this mindset that he can dictate what is going on when it comes to the legislation. When we proposed policy and legislation, we came up with solutions. We had thousands of people over the summertime talking about defund the police, alternatives to extreme policing. We have extreme policing conditions. If you make 191 call, 20 to 30 officers will show up at your door looking for a murderer. And what happens is innocent people get caught up in this. This is a huge problem. We try to bring solutions to him. We try to bring up college debt. We try to bring up the things that are not being addressed. Many of the times our political members, they come up with policy that is counterproductive. And in this meeting, you notice everything that we brought up was valid. These are things that we've even got petitions signed for. We had thousands of people sign the Breathe Act, which is holding police bringing us police accountability on paper. And our goal was to get demands, get commitments, get consistency at a timeline. That was the priority. We wanted to be a part of the process on paper, signed off, commitments by the mayor. Unfortunately, we was not able to make that happen because he did not agree with student debt. He did not agree with us. He did not agree with us on police accountability. And his rebuttal to that was to hold us accountable for stopping the violence. I think he's expecting us to go in the middle of shootouts and die, but we cannot do that. We want to commit to prevention methods, which is tackling poverty and also being active in the community.
Stephon, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your passion. Can you just quickly let us know how people can stay in touch with you?
People could stay in touch with me via Instagram, PRIVILEGEB on Instagram. They can also contact me by email, PRIVILEGEB bookings@gmail.com. I also have a Twitter, but my government name is Stephon Baines. So reach out to me. Black Lives Matter Chapter New York. Also, Black Opportunities is the campaign and the organization that we are going to be using as a platform to provide many of our resources through.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back with more Open BXRX Tuesday. It's a disease that affects over 6 million Americans. In the month of November, health professionals dedicate time to spread awareness on Alzheimer's. With a focus on the mental health of those affected by this disease, psychiatrist Dr. Mirnova Ceïde joins us for discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thanks for having me.
So I just want to start off by talking about the disease. Can you tell us what is Alzheimer's and is it hereditary?
So Alzheimer's is a type of what's called dementia. And when I'm explaining dementia to my patients, typically dementia just means very serious changes in your memory and function that don't seem to go away. They last for many years. Alzheimer's is the most common form of that. And it's caused by some changes in the brain cells that cause the cells to deteriorate that lead to changes in your overall function. So the second question was it hereditary? That's a complicated question. The majority of Alzheimer's is not hereditary. That being said, most people will say that they have someone in their family who had Alzheimer's, but it's because the biggest risk factor for Alzheimer's is age. So if you have older people in your family, then you may have one family member who has Alzheimer's. There are some genetic components to Alzheimer's, but that's different from being hereditary, meaning they kind of spontaneously appear in your genes and can cause Alzheimer's, but it's not that it's necessarily being caused by, the parents having it and then you're definitely having it. It's very rare to have a genetic hereditary form of Alzheimer's, which would kind of lead to a younger onset. That would be in less than 10% of the cases.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. Now, I understand that there are several warning signs. Can you tell us what they are?
So the warning signs can be a little concerning, especially in older adults, because you worry when you just forget something, if that's what's going on. But generally what you're looking for is a pattern of changes that are happening again over time. So maybe misplacing something, but not being able to retrace your steps to find it. Getting disoriented with the date and time. So that, of course, especially in COVID, sometimes we forget the day of the week or even the date. But if you're getting confused about the year or the month or what holidays pass by, that might be a change. Having difficulty working more complicated things like your microwave or your smartphone when you were able to do it before, or starting to get lost driving in areas that you're familiar with, leaving the stove on. All of these are the signs that someone might be going through Alzheimer's. So the big picture is that really changes in your memory and ability to organize, but not just a one-off, it's a pattern of changes.
And when should we start looking for these signs? Because I know it's like older people, but that could change from person to person. So what is like the ideal age you should start looking for those signs?
Well, generally we do screen people who are 65 and older at their annual wellness visit to see if they have any memory problems. So normally you go to your doctor once a year, once you hit 65, and they'll ask you if you've noticed any significant changes in your memory. So that's standard. But if you do have other risk factors, advanced kidney disease, strokes, things like that, that may be bigger risk factors, you may let your doctor know to check in with your memory earlier on. So in general, over 60 is when we're looking, but obviously if you see changes, let your doctor know.
Now, we don't want to alarm anyone, right? So how do we differentiate these signs from just typical age-related changes?
Right. And so this is really, really the most important thing, is that it's not something that should be constantly on your mind to be worrying about. People can forget things from time to time, particularly when things are stressful or when you're isolated and you're not doing anything. When you go from working, sometimes you really are not on top of the day of the week or the date. So that's really typical. Generally, once or twice, if you have something happen, forgetting a word or forgetting something, it's not something to worry about. What you would be looking at would be a pattern of changes over time, very consistently, months to months to months. So don't really worry if you have an event happen once or twice.
Now, what are some of the mental health challenges people experience after getting an Alzheimer's or dementia diagnosis?
So I guess there's two ways that I look at some of the mental health struggles that our patients go through. So one is just dealing with the diagnosis and coping with having a new chronic medical illness. And that can be difficult for not only the patient, but also their family member, because it can change things. It can change what you thought your future was going to be. So that's always difficult. In addition, because of the nature of the illness, because our brain also controls our emotions, about 50 to 75% of people who do have a diagnosis with Alzheimer's will suffer from some kind of emotional depression, anxiety, apathy, some kind of change in their mood.
Now, how should family members and caregivers approach someone who they believe may be experiencing Alzheimer's?
I would say the best way is cautiously, and in terms of like not really making somebody very anxious about it. If you do notice a change, the most common thing to do is just say, let's talk about it with your primary care doctor. And the reason that's important is because there are different medical illnesses that can look like Alzheimer's. So for instance, undiagnosed hypothyroidism or vitamin deficiencies can all present with changes in your memory. So it's very important, if you do notice changes, or if you notice those changes in your family member, make sure you get to your primary care doctor and have a full evaluation.
So I believe that when someone in your family is affected by this, it can really change the dynamics. Can you just explain how this diagnosis could impact several members in a family?
Right. So, families really are their own ecosystem. And so everybody has a role in a family, and that develops over time. And so sometimes when somebody gets a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, it's not just the fact that they have memory issues, it's the impact of that on the day to day. So maybe that person's no longer able to drive or no longer managing the finances. So then now somebody else has to take that over. So it can be very sad and stressful for the person who's not able to do it, but it also can be overwhelming for the person who now has to take over a new role. And so it's important to think about the whole family ecosystem, not just one person.
And how does this stress differ from caring for people who have other, disabilities or different needs?
It is a unique challenge, as a partner for somebody who's dealing with Alzheimer's, because sometimes because of the emotional changes and the ability to participate in things, it just changes the dynamic of your relationship. If you have a physical illness, you still can, listen to music together and enjoy it, or be able to recall something that happened and enjoy it. Whereas in Alzheimer's, it really may impact the quality of the relationship in that way. And so it takes some additional counseling to be able to overcome that.
Now, I've read that a healthy diet and exercise and things that can stimulate your mind can help prevent this. Is this true? And is there anything that can be done to prevent Alzheimer's?
It is true to a point. It's not magically going to reverse Alzheimer's if you have it, but the overwhelming data does show lifestyle changes make a difference. Not only does the data show, we actually are seeing there's less new cases of Alzheimer's by proportion because of more health, of being healthier, getting on top of your vascular illnesses, treating your high blood pressure, getting on top of your diabetes, getting active, doing more stimulating activities. These actually all have been shown to work. Not necessarily different supplements that you might read about, but the overall activity, in particular, challenging cognitive activities and physical activity. So one of the best ones, for instance, is dance, because that makes you have to remember choreography and do physical activity. Those kind of activities are really helpful for stimulating the mind.
Now, what are you kind of mentioned dance, so I feel like this kind of goes into that, but what are some ways, we can make life more meaningful, with members of our family or friends who are experiencing memory loss?
Well, this is a really good question because you start to lose your ability to complete some of your activities of daily living. Sometimes people really go through a bit of an identity crisis. So you want to focus on what people can do, not on what they can't do. Someone can still be a part of the family. So if that's someone who really loves to cook, maybe you're not cooking on your own, but you can kind of do something with the family together and cook a favorite meal and mention the recipes that you want, or go through old albums together, look at different memories. That can be very stimulating and positive for people. So really making sure that the person who's going through dementia is still a part of the family, even if they can't do 100% of it. If they can do 30% of it, let them do that 30% and then support the 70%.
Now, how can mental health professionals support families and caregivers of those suffering or not suffering, dealing with dementia?
So one of the biggest things that we can do as mental health providers is, one, just acknowledging that this is really difficult and overwhelming for everybody involved, and making sure that we're providing additional support for the mental well-being of folks with dementia as well as their physical well-being. And in addition, making sure that we have that time with the caregiver so they're able to grieve these changes and be able to have some support for them as well.
And so what are you doing now just to reach out to these patients? What services do you have available to those who are in this situation?
So one of the most important things is, in addition to if you notice a change in your memory, seeing your primary care doctor, is getting to a dementia specialist. So at Montefiore, we have our Center for the Aging Brain. It is a center of excellence for dementia care in the Hudson Valley region. And so that would be something to get a full evaluation, so that you're seeing a geriatric medicine specialist, you're seeing a neurologist, a geriatric psychiatrist, a social worker, neuropsychologist, and getting a full testing to really understand what's going on, because sometimes people can have memory changes from a medical reason, or it could also be from another kind of dementia other than Alzheimer's. So it's very important to get accurate diagnosis.
Now, I understand that this is not something that is going to affect everyone, because as you mentioned, that doesn't mean it's always hereditary, but it is, a part of life. What would you say to somebody who may be struggling to accept the fact that someone in their family may be dealing with this, or for the person themselves that think that they might be dealing with this?
Well, definitely one of the most helpful things that we have in the community are support groups. And I know early on, sometimes it's really hard to accept the diagnosis, but being in a support group, even just listening to what other people have experienced, will allow you to connect and understand that you're not the only one going through it. And they can give you ideas of how to have the most meaningful life possible. The biggest thing, again, is just really engaging on what you can do and really having positive experience that way, while accepting and clarifying what your diagnosis is.
Now, doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell people where they can stay up to date with you and Montefiore in general?
So definitely you can find out about our services at montefiore.org at the Aging Brain. You can find out how to connect with the Center for the Aging Brain. Also, you do want to look at your local community providers for any kind of Alzheimer's support, caregiver support groups like Caring Kind NYC or alz.org for just overall resources.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's all for our show today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Kibin, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.